Close your eyes. Standing in the shadow of a great cathedral, feel the cold stone beneath your feet. Now listen to the whispers of two men who built this legend together. Charles Barry stood at the center as the master architect who needed a partner. He was the leader, but the task was too large for one man alone. He searched for someone to match his vision and bring new life to ancient stone. That search led him to a young man named Augustus Pugin. Pugin was a genius at design who saw the world in sharp lines and patterns. He loved the Gothic style with a deep, burning passion. Those beautiful, pointy decorations you see on old or his favorite creation. If Charles Barry was the bones of the building, Pugin was the soul that gave it heart. Barry built the strong walls, but Pugin filled every corner with meaning and beauty. Pugin worked very hard on every single detail of the great construction. He designed intricate wallpaper that covered the walls with stories from the past. He crafted colorful tiles that lined the floors with rubles and art. He painted the most important part of all, the beautiful face of the clock tower. That face still watches over the city today, a testament to his endless effort. But Pugin's life was not easy during this time of great creativity. He worked so hard that he became very tired and sick. His body could not keep up with the speed of his brilliant mind. He gave his whole life to this tower and to the vision of the past. The light in his eyes faded as the weight of his work pressed down on him. He poured every ounce of energy into making the building feel like a living place. His hands shook from exhaustion, yet he never stopped drawing or designing. History books remember Barry as the leader, but they must also remember Pugin. Without Pugin, the building would have been strong but empty and cold. Together they created something that changed the way we see history and art. You can still feel the presence of that young genius in every shadow. His story reminds us that great work often demands a heavy price from the artist. While Pugin sketched London's changing face, the government quietly searched for a different kind of genius. They did not want a simple timekeeper. They needed the ultimate brain for the clock. The leaders of London had a specific vision in their minds. They rejected ordinary clocks that drifted in the wind and lost track. Most clocks back then were not very good at all. They would slow down when the air grew cold. They would speed up when the heat became too strong. Even the heaviest gears could not fight the elements alone. Gravity pulled on the pendulum with relentless force every single day. London leaders demanded perfection that seemed impossible to achieve. They wanted a clock that would stay perfectly on time. They wanted accuracy down to the exact second. How can a giant clock outside stay accurate? It hangs high in an hour above everything else. The tower sways slightly with the slightest gust of wind. Snow piles up at the base and blocks the path. Rain seeps into the wooden casing and rusts the metal. Dust settles on the delicate escapement and slows the motion. This was a very difficult goal for any human mind. Many clockmakers said it was impossible to solve. They believed no machine could withstand such harsh weather. But two men believed they could do it anyway. They saw the problem where others saw only failure. One man studied the math of falling objects deeply. The other built gears that could lock against sudden shocks. Their hope burned bright against the dark sky of London. They knew the world needed this perfect timekeeper. The streets below bustled with carriages and shouting people. But up in the tower, only the ticking mattered. That sound had to be steady and true forever. The government offered gold for a solution that worked. No one else had dared to take on this challenge. The pressure was immense and the stakes were very high. If they failed, the entire project would collapse into dust. If they succeeded, they would change how humanity saw time. The contrast between the drawn city and the real tower was stark. Pugin captured beauty on paper, while engineers fought physics in steel. The wind screamed against the glass and the stone walls. The snow fell silent the rooftops in white. Inside the mechanism, tiny springs stretched and snapped back. Every part had to work in perfect harmony together. This was the hidden brain that the city needed most. Two brave men stepped forward to solve the impossible puzzle. They walked into the workshop with tools in their hands. They looked at the blueprints and saw a new path. The rest of the world waited to see what would happen. Would the clock hold up against the storms of winter? Would the gear survive the heat of a summer day? Standing in a dimly lit room where the air is thick with old iron and oil, you can hear it now, a rhythmic sound that never stops. Talk. This is the heartbeat of the great clock. Behind those moving hands lies a complex world of giant metal wheels, heavy weights hanging from chains, and thousands of tiny gears turning in perfect silence. This entire machine was designed to move the hands with absolute precision. Yet, building the machine was only half the battle. The real challenge began when the wind blew outside. Edmund Beckett Dennison was the man in charge of this enormous machine. He was a very smart engineer, but he was also very stubborn about one thing. He knew that the wind hitting the giant clock hands could push them and make the clock wrong. To him, this was not just a nuisance. It was a threat to the very soul of timekeeping. He could not accept a clock that was influenced by the weather. To fix this, he invented something brand new and brilliant. It is called the gravity escapement. I know, that sounds like a big, difficult name for a simple idea. But think of it like this. It is a special guard that makes sure the clock only moves exactly when it is supposed to. It acts as a shield, protecting the steady tick-tock from the chaos of the wind. Because of this invention, the clock became the most accurate in the world at that time. It was a true masterpiece of engineering that changed how humanity measured days. But there was a funny problem that even this great invention could not solve completely. Even with the gravity escapement, the clock sometimes needed a tiny bit of help from humans. How do you fix a giant clock that is running too fast or too slow? The answer was not a new machine or a complex tool. It was small coins. To this day, they use old British pennies to adjust the speed. If the clock is a little bit too fast, they add a penny to the top of the pendulum. If it is too slow, they take one off. One single penny can change the speed of the clock by 0 for seconds a day. Can you believe that? A giant, heavy machine controlled by the weight of a few small coins. It shows us that even empires and massive structures rely on simple things. The weight of a copper penny could dictate the time for thousands of people. This moment connect in your hand the largest tower in the world. We see how power, trade, and time are all connected in history. Now they just had to make it real. Imagine the heavy, rhythmic sound of a bell ringing across London. You hear the metal singing. But the voice you know today was not the first one. The clock was a triumph, strong and beautiful. Yet a clock needs a voice to tell the city what time it is. That is where the story of the bell begins. We come to the most famous part now. But the Big Ben we hear today was not the original. The first bell was made in 1856. It was enormous, weighing 16 tons. It was so big it had to be carried through the streets of London by 16 white horses. People cheered loudly. They were so excited. But then, something terrible happened. While they were testing the bell, it cracked. The sound was ruined. All that hard work was gone. The people were very disappointed. But they did not give up. They broke the old bell and melted the metal. They tried again. In 1858, a second bell was made in a place called the Whitecastle Bell Foundry. This bell was a little smaller, about 13.5 tons. But it was still a giant. This second bell is the one we call Big Ben. But why Big Ben? There are two stories. Some say it was named after Sir Benjamin Hall. He was a very tall man who helped manage the building project. People liked him and called him Big Ben. Other people say it was named after Ben Seant. He was a famous heavyweight boxer at the time. He was strong and tough, just like the bell. We do not know which story is true. History often leaves us guessing. The name stuck because it sounded strong and friendly. It became part of the daily life of millions. Every hour, the sound woke up the sleeping streets. The tower you know today carries a different name than the one that stood before the flames. The giant clock we live now holds its own deep and ancient story. And Big Ben, well, Big Ben is actually just a massive bell hidden inside the tower. It is a bell with a voice so loud it can be heard for miles across the land. Have you ever wondered how such a giant bell ended up in that specific spot? Who built it with such care and skill? And why does it mean so much to the people of England and the world? Think about your own life and the sounds you love today. Do you have a favorite sound that calms your mind? Maybe it is the soft sound of rain on the roof. Or maybe it is a song your mother sang to you when you were young. For Londoners, Big Ben is the steady heartbeat of their entire city. It tells them that time is moving forward and that they are still home. In this story, we will go back in time together to see the truth. We will see fires, big dreams, and very hard work. We will meet the men who wanted to build the best clock in the world. We will learn how a simple bell became a symbol of great strength. Let us begin our journey at a time when London almost lost everything. A cold night in October of the year 1834. The sky over London is not black that night. It is bright and scary orange from the fire. The Palace of Westminster, the place where the government meets, is on fire. People stood by the River Thames and watched in silence. They cried as the old buildings burned to the ground completely. It was a terrible tragedy for everyone who lived there. In just one single night, hundreds of years of history turned into gray ash. But my friends, sometimes something beautiful can come from something very sad. When the fire finally went out, the people of London did not give up hope. They said they would build it again with new hope and love. They promised that this new building would be bigger and better than before. The government sent out a call for a new design that would be both grand and safe. Architects from all over Europe came to London to show their plans. One young man named Charles Barry won the contest with his clever ideas. He worked with a famous painter named Augustus Pugin to make sure the new building looked perfect. They chose the Gothic style because it reminded people of old cathedrals and strong history. The construction started slowly because the site was difficult and ground was wet. Workers had to build tall iron columns first to hold up the roof before the walls were finished. This was a very new way to build at that time in history. The Great Clock Tower was added later as part of the whole complex. It took many years to finish every single detail of the stone and iron work. The bell was cast in London itself by a famous foundry called Whitechapel Bell Foundry. They melted down old cannons from the war to make the metal for the great bell. The sound it made was tested carefully to ensure it could be heard far away. One young man named Charles Barry won the contest with his clever ideas. He worked with a famous painter named Augustus Pugin to make sure the new building looked perfect. They chose the Gothic style because it reminded people of old cathedrals and strong history. The construction started slowly because the site was difficult and ground was wet. Workers had to build tall iron columns first to hold up the roof before the walls were finished. This was a very new way to build at that time in history. The Great Clock Tower was added later as part of the whole complex. It took many years to finish every single detail of the stone and iron work. The bell was cast in London itself by a famous foundry called Whitechapel Bell Foundry. They melted down old cannons from the war to make the metal for the great bell. The sound it made was tested carefully to ensure it could be heard far away. The clock face was painted with bright black numbers and so sailors could see them clearly. Sailors on ships in the river used the sound to check their time and navigate safely.